Hello everyone and welcome to the new video of myself and Alex Hughes racing in the Puma Cup at Snetterton. The weekend started so well, got loaded up, transit and trailer looks great with Woodstock on the back, and we decided to set off on the so-called 3.5 hour journey to Snetterton from my office. I say 3.5 hours because we were towing. However, when we got to about this little spot on the A11, which is about 8 miles from the circuit, the Ford Transit campervan engine decided to let go. So having pulled over to a safe space at the side of the dual carriageway, Mark and I did not get depressed. We had a little beer in our picnic chairs while we waited for the AA to come along so that they could recover us, stick us on the back of a low loader and take us the remaining 8 miles all the way to the circuit. You know what? Sometimes bad stuff happens, but so what, move on. This weekend I was going to be sharing the car with my old friend Alex. This is what he looks like when he's dressed as a dragon, and this is what Alex... well, this is just what Alex looks like. Also, this is what Alex looks like when he's dressed as a racing driver. Now, I've known Alex nearly 20 years, and a few years ago he was very kind and let me car share with him and his Astra GTE in a Tin Tops race at Alton Park. So it was nice to return the favour and get him out in the Puma for his first event in the Puma Cup. Now, as you know, Snetterton is a very flat, long circuit. We'd got a 40-minute race ahead of us, so the plan was to do the usual 20 minutes each and see how we got on. Now, Alex had managed to put the car on pole position for us. He was about a second quicker than me in qualifying, but I was quite happy with that actually, because I'd gone about half a second faster than I did at this track last year. So whether that's improvements in myself or improvements in the car, things were going well. Half a second faster for me, Alex a further second up the road, and we put it on pole from Jamie Clare by I think about 3 or 4, well, maybe 3/10 in the end. So all things considered, we knew it was going to be a close race because I was off Alex's pace, and just doing the sums, we knew it was going to be close come the end of the 40 minutes when we were going out to see the checkered flag. Okay, so here I am heading out onto the circuit to start the installation lap, the warm-up lap. Now, it is quite a long lap here at Snetterton, as I mentioned, so the idea here is to get the car as up to temperature as possible. We've got a rolling start, and unfortunately I've traditionally not been very good at rolling starts. For some reason I try to anticipate, and then miss the jump. It's something I'm just going to have to work on. But for this race I was starting alongside Jamie Clare, who was in P2, but I was on the outside of the circuit when we come to form up. So I knew I was going to be on the outside going into the first corner and the outside going into the second corner, which is quite a tight hairpin, the one I've just gone round on the camera there. So although we were in P1, it felt like a bit of a disadvantage really. We were going to be lining up behind a red Fiesta, which generally speaking we had pace on in qualifying and practice, so I was a little bit wary of getting held up by that Fiesta even though it qualified in front of us. And of course with Jamie on the inside for 2 corners, I knew it was going to be really difficult to keep him behind, but that was my plan. I had to keep ahead of Jamie, keep him behind for as long as possible, and if he did get ahead, cling to him as best I could so that when the pit stop happened Alex could exploit his pace and put the chase on and go for the win. Okay, so we're coming up to the final corner now, so everyone's starting to bunch up and get into position ready for the start. You can see just in my rearview mirror I have the Mazda of Simon Hans, and Jamie is alongside on the right hand side, and we're pretty much booting it now. Jamie's already ahead. I don't know how the hell he did that, but he's already gone. And of course this is the red Fiesta that I was a little bit worried about. I had pace, moved to the outside, and then he moved over a little bit, which was tricky. But managed to dive up the inside and make the pass. I was determined to get ahead there. Now, those guys helped us out a lot at Knockhill, father-son team, so I really didn't want to ruin their race, but I knew it was important to try and get ahead of them as soon as I could. And now you can see Jamie is 3 or 4 cars up the road. Not too worried about the BMW in front of me because that's got so much pace and it shouldn't have been starting at the back of the grid. So now the plan is to find a bit of a rhythm, hope that Jamie gets a little bit bulked in the traffic with the other cars and try and get back onto his bumper and put him under some pressure. Now, whilst that was the plan, and it was a good one, it was also going to be a very difficult one to execute. You can just see in the rear view mirror the blue Puma there of John Bolt making a pass on the red Fiesta as well. Now, unfortunately, John had an accident at Donington Park, and this is his brand new Puma car, so this is the first time he's raced it. I believe it was the first time he drove it that morning, actually, so I didn't know really how fast John was going to be, whether he would be a bit tentative in his shiny new car or whether his shiny new car would be an improvement. So it was a bit of a I didn't really know how much defending I was going to have to do, but I honestly think I was a bit cautious, and I think the car was up to temperature before I thought it was, and that little bit of hesitation allowed John to get a run on me. Now you can see in the rear view mirror he's about there. I'm pulling away slightly, so I'm thinking that I've got this one covered. Move to the inside, take the corner, and then whoosh, under braking for the next bit, he launches it. I have to open up the steering a little bit just so that we don't collide, but that put me offline, a little bit late on the throttle, the revs bogged, and now John's ahead of me as well. So this is really not going to plan. So again, it's now a case of reset, get back into a rhythm, and see about sticking on the back of John's bumper to try and catch him, put him under pressure, and see about making an overtake. At this point, I've been chasing John for X amount of corners, and unfortunately I don't seem to be catching him. and looking at my lap delta, I was really struggling on the to keep the car as fast as it was in the morning session for qualifying. Now I know Alex was quicker than me, but I was still off my own pace, and I was struggling. I just couldn't really figure it out. Was my head not quite there? What was the difference? Why was I losing a couple of tenths per corner compared to what I was in the morning? And being such a long circuit, a long lap, those couple of tenths per corner added up to quite a lot by the end of the lap, and that was shown here with John pulling away from me. I must admit, I wasn't expecting that. I thought that I would be able to catch him and put him under some pressure, but then the overdrive kicks in, and you think, John, you're just not being brave enough. Try harder, go faster. And that sort of breaks up your rhythm, messes up your brain, how you do things, your processes, your muscle memory, and that induces more mistakes. Now, I've been doing the Puma Cup a couple of years now, and the learning curve is still happening, but you can see there on the hairpin the way that I had to fight the car. That was a result of standing on the brakes a bit too hard, trying to brake a little bit later than I did previously to make up some time. The knock-on effect of that was that the back end went light and started to come round, which meant a steering correction in the middle of the corner, and again ended up slower coming out of it and lose a few more car lengths to John in front of me. So I'm now starting to think maybe it's going to be difficult to catch John. What's the situation behind? Am I under threat? Do I need to defend? And you can just see in the rear view camera there is the green car of the Jackson brothers. Now, I don't know what happened to them at the start of the race, but I was expecting them to be a bit further up. So I could see the gap to them and thought, right, I'm just going to have to manage that gap. I didn't know what it was. I was hoping that when I come round to the start line, the pit board would show me the gap to the car behind. But at the moment, it's just a case of trying to make some mental, what's the word I'm looking for, sort of viewpoints, checkpoints around the circuit. When I turn in here, the Jacksons are there. When I do this, the Jacksons are there, and try and gauge whether I'm pulling away or whether they're closing up on me. But I won't know for sure until I get to the start line and see the pit board. Okay, now I can't honestly remember if I got this information from the pit board or not, but I've just checked the timing on the TSL website, and at this point in the race, the Jacksons behind were 3 seconds away. 3 seconds behind, looking at them in the mirror, I'm thinking, he's getting bigger. He's definitely catching me, but how much? Now, I'm starting to get that feeling in the car of what the hell's going on. I can't hit the pace that I did this morning. I've tried calming down, I've tried being a bit more aggressive, but I just couldn't get the car quite balanced the way that I wanted it to. It felt different to the morning. We did make some tyre pressure changes, but I thought those pressure changes were going to make an improvement. In the morning session, at the end of it, our tyre pressures were 25 psi hot, and the conventional wisdom is that 30 psi hot is a much better way to go. Now, I was kicking myself because the car felt great, it was really well balanced, and really, in hindsight, we should have just left it. Don't change what isn't broken, that kind of thing. But conventional wisdom said it would be better to put a few more psi into the tyres, and I guess it just livened the car up a bit too much for my liking. It wasn't as steady under the brakes, and it felt skittish mid-corner on the apex, and that's where I was losing the time. You can see the correction there, you can see the Jacksons behind looming large. Now, it turned out that I ended up having a really good battle with them, and we've never really gone wheel to wheel on the circuit, me and these guys, so it was a bit of a first for both of us, but we know each other quite well. We knew that it was going to be a clean and fair fight, so there was never any concern from me in that department. but now I'm also driving defensively, which means that I'm also going to lose time. So not only have they got a natural pace advantage at this point of the race, I'm making it easier for them by trying to defend as well, which means that John Bolt and Jamie Clare ahead of us are getting further ahead, which means my original plan to give Alex a fighting chance at the pit stop is starting to go away, and I can only imagine what Alex was thinking on the pit wall. Probably some colourful language along the lines of "bloody hell, Glover, come on, pull your finger out and put your foot down." I was trying, I was really trying, but again, I didn't need the pit board that time. The gap had closed to 1.5 seconds at the line, so they pulled 1.5 seconds on me over one lap, and frankly I thought the writing was on the wall. They're going to get past at some point. I've just got to try and delay it for as long as I can. With the tight right-hander coming down here, I saw them move to the inside a little bit, but then back out of it, and then he went to the outside, which I thought was brave, but he was trying to get the switch back, which normally, well, that can work, but given the next corner is a left-hander, it was unlikely to. So I knew all I had to do here was keep it steady, keep it on the line, keep it tidy, and nail the exit so that I'd get the run down to the next corner. I was half expecting him to go up the inside here, but last year at this track they had a spin at this corner from being a bit too exuberant, and I thought they might be mindful of that and, you know, don't take too many liberties. He did show his nose up the inside, but honestly that was under control. I was never worried he was going to actually get past there. This was the worrying bit though, because that's a fast turn in, and I have to turn in and claim my corner at some point, and I didn't want him to be alongside when I did. Luckily they sort of thought the same thing and looked like a little throttle lift to give me space. More than likely, well, demonstrating good racecraft on their part, because more than likely if they kept it tidy, this is where the overtaking chance comes. Down the, I can't remember what they call it. It used to be the back straight. It's probably the Bentley, the Brundle, the Stewart, the, I don't know, the whatever straight. But yeah, this is the big one, and you see him tight up in my slipstream there. He looks like he's going to go to the inside, but I'm good on the brakes down here. I had been most of the weekend, so managed to cover that one off, get to the inside. I'm not falling for the same trick that John Bolt pulled on me earlier. And again, this part of the circuit is all about commitment. It's going to be very difficult for them to get alongside to the point where they can make a pass. Now, I wanted to stay tidy round here, and that does mean leaving a bit of room on the left hand side, but it's also, oh, here comes the leaders, I forgot about them. They don't half give you a surprise when they come flying up behind you. So yeah, they were looking up the inside. Big brake lock there from the Jacksons as they tried to avoid the BMW, who once again didn't anticipate how good the Pumas were on the brakes. Now luckily for me, the leaders all come flying past on the straight, so I don't actually lose any time, and I get a bit of breathing space back to the Jacksons behind me in 4th place. So on to the start of another lap. I no idea what the gap was in terms of time, but frankly it didn't make any difference. I knew they were fast. Look how he slid it around that corner there. That's just on the edge of traction. That's absolutely perfect, and that's something that I was trying to do, but frankly didn't have the confidence. So that little bit of breathing room that I had from the leaders passing us, they've eaten that up already, and I can only imagine how frustrated they were getting in that car, because they've clearly got pace on me, but they're not being able to get through so far. Now at this point, as I mentioned, I know that the writing's on the wall. They're going to get past eventually. If everything stays even Stevens, so to speak, it's going to take something for me to be able to stay ahead, at least by the pit stop. So I'm kind of in that no man's land. I can't even see the Puma in front, John Bolt in the blue car, if you remember him from lap 1. It's all about the rear view mirror, and I'm kind of at a loss. I can't hit my deltas. I'm struggling under braking, which is compromising the exit, so that means I'm struggling down the straight as well. My only hope really is that as these leaders come and lap us, they get me at a more convenient time to when they get the Jacksons, which means that I should be able to pull out a few car lengths and give myself some breathing room. However, on this occasion, that Ginetta came flying past, didn't bulk either of us, so the Jacksons, got a good run down the straight here, and they were just creeping up, and it was a tough one. I thought I was going to be alright down here, gave him a little wave as he came by, but again, I guess he was a little bit braver than he was the previous lap, and I decided to, yeah, alright, he's won this one. At exactly that moment, this bunch of leaders came flying past. If they'd have been another 2-3 seconds sooner, I might have been okay. But to my surprise, look at Neil there, or Mark, I can't remember which one was in the car first, apologies. Ran really wide coming out the bomb hole, hit the dust, got a bit sideways, and I thought, have I got a chance to pass them here? But look at the gap, they didn't lose any time at all. The stopwatch might tell a different story, but visually, they were as far ahead of me when they rejoined the circuit as they were when they left it, which was a bit of a surprise. Now, if you can see the timer in the middle of the dashboard on that blue panel, we've just gone over 15 minutes, which means that we're in the pit window, and given it's a 2.5 minute lap, if I pit at the end of this lap, it's going to be as fair on Alex as I can make it in terms of driving time. And frankly, at this point, it was time for me to get out of the car. I failed miserably in keeping up with Jamie. I wasn't able to defend from John Bull when it happened, and although I had a really good scrap with Jackson's, I did really enjoy that. It was good whilst it was frustrating. It was wheel to wheel in a Puma, which is something to behold. It was great. I did enjoy it, even though the outcome was disappointing. So I've decided now already I'm going to call it a day on my stint and bring it in at the end of this lap. Flying down the pit straight a few seconds ago, put the indicator on so the guys on the pit wall knew that I'd be coming in at the end of this lap. That gives Mark, our mechanic, Mark Chappell, and Alex, the next driver, time to get ready. They'll go and find a spot in the pit lane for us. Alex will do his final checks on his gloves, on his helmet, make sure his hands device is ready, that kind of thing, so that we can make a swift pit stop without any errors. Now, you don't really have to worry in the pit stops in the Puma Cup. If you've listened to one of these videos before, you'll know the rules, but for those that haven't, I shall repeat them. When we enter the pits, we start a stopwatch. We get a 2-minute countdown, which means that we've got 2 minutes in the pit lane. We cannot exit the pits before that 2 minutes is up. Now, that is great for us because doing a driver change takes longer than the old get in and out of the car routine. So it negates any advantage or disadvantage of one driver teams over 2 driver teams. So we don't have to rush, we don't have to make any mistakes, and we've been really, really good on the pit stops. In fact, it was Donington, I believe, we managed to cross the pit exit line on 2 minutes and 3/100ths of a second, which was the fastest pit stop of anybody in the race, in the entire race weekend, as it happens. So we know we're good at pit stops when we get them right, and there's not really a lot can go wrong. Things that can go wrong, not being able to find your pit stall, getting stuck on the exit, when it's your time to go. And as you're about to see there, look, I reset the timer, slow down to the pit speed limit, and then somewhere around here when we cross the line, there it is, beep, that's my 2 minutes. Now normally we'd be in the first stop, but I can't see anyone. Where's my guys? I don't know, and there's chaos here, there's cars all over. It's inconvenient at this point, but it doesn't really matter because as long as we hit that 2 minutes, then we're going to be okay. So that's my job done. Engine off, belts undone, climb out the car and hand it over to Alex. Yeah, see what he can do. There's Mark sorting out the belts. Here's Alex getting into the car. And Alex was planning to leave the pits on, I think, something like 1 minute 43. That would get him to the pit lane speed limit time perfectly, but because we ended up stopping further down the pits than we anticipated, we were going to have to review that and sort of wing it a little bit. But right, that's me done for the time being. I must admit, at this point, I was not very happy. I was not happy with my performance. I was not happy with the setup change we made on the car with those tyre pressures. I wasn't particularly happy with the pit stop arrangement. Even though it didn't matter, it still frustrated me that we didn't have the correct box and I couldn't see the guys or where they were. Nobody's fault, it's just one of those things. And like I say, it didn't actually affect anything, but in the heat of the moment, it's just another thing that's gone wrong, and that is very frustrating. So actually, at this point, I'm just telling Alex a bit about the car, telling him what I thought of it. It's all irrelevant, because as soon as he gets out, he immediately makes his own mind up anyway. So there go the belts. There's Mark and I seemingly quite happy. And just as it's time for Alex to leave, in the next few seconds, look what comes down the pit lane. You can just see Mark, where's Mark? There he is, waiting. Now 45, 40, go. But there are cars coming down the pit lane, so we're losing more and more time. There's nothing we can do there. It's just unfortunate. You know, the traffic comes when the traffic comes. Right, I'm going to shut up now, let Alex take over for his stint, and I shall rejoin you at the end of the race.
Hello everybody, and thanks to John for this opportunity to drive his little Puma or Woodstock. I'm not entirely on board with naming cars, but you know, you're often the chance of not going to turn the electricity down if it does have a daft name. What John didn't say as he was getting me into the car, and Mark was manhandling me, was that at that point he was saying the car was awful, it was oversteering, it was squiffy on the brakes. So, you know, not the best way to go out into the middle of a race. It kind of knocks your confidence a little bit, and hence you see on this particular first few corners that I'm a little bit hesitant turning in and getting on the brakes and committing to corners, because I'm not entirely sure what the car's going to do when I provoke it, for want of a better expression. So. A little bit tentative than I would normally be out of the pits, and you can just see there that we've come into a yellow flag zone where a car's broken down on the right hand side, which was actually for us pretty good news, because obviously we dropped quite a long way behind the leaders in the Puma Cup, and I was hoping that a safety car period would happen, and so at that point, you know, I'm pretty chuffed, thinking, well, it's a broken down car, it's on the racing line, we're going to get a yellow flag. So I'm just waiting to start to see the safety car boards. Driving through this section, I can see that my basic race instructor stuff and driving the car like Miss Daisy with my shuffling hands on the steering wheel, like it was something out of driving school, which isn't ideal, and something that I will have to think about in the offset season and to correct. The car doesn't have power steering, which makes it quite heavy, but even so, there's no excuse for the pushing and pulling that I'm doing on the steering wheel as I was taking my driving test. So here we are on the start straight, and I'm a little surprised that we haven't seen any yellow flags yet, or safety car boards, but as we just come past the left hand side there, you can see a broken down car, and now I'm absolutely 100% sure there's going to be a safety car deployed to remove that car, and on the Cotton Mini that we saw earlier in the lap. And as you can see, as we come down to the hairpin, you can see the safety car boards and the yellow flags. So we've skipped ahead now to the end of the safety car period. It was poor safety car period. Cars in front didn't catch up the train, so we were left lagging behind, and we weren't able to close up on the Pumas as much as we would have thought. But you can see just ahead the green Puma, who is currently second. Come back to green racing, and now the race is on to see if I can second place off him. Obviously, going through Corm isn't really a place where you'll pass, and so I just thought I'll put the guy under a bit of pressure and let him know that I'm there. Obviously, the Nissan going through on the inside is going to unsettle him a little bit, and I can put the car on the inside, just that he's not entirely sure where I am. And as we come into the last corner, I can see that he's messed up his braking, and he's going to be slow at the corner, which gives me the opportunity to get a much better exit and much better drive out the corner on the start-finish straight. Checking my mirrors to make sure nothing's coming from my side, because I was racing with much quicker cars. one thing that did catch me by surprise, obviously we've got past the Ford Puma, but just behind it, a Mini had caught us up quite quickly and was able to launch itself down the inside into the first corner. Not that I was particularly expecting, but I had a quick look in my right mirror, realised it was there and was able to give him room, so we didn't make contact. And now I'm thinking, well, how quick is this car? Is this a car that it's going to pull me along, or is it a car that's going to sail off into the middle distance? Does it have more power than we do? Obviously, you can see there the Mini Countryman that comes past on the left-hand side. It's probably got, I don't know, probably at least double the horsepower, probably even a little bit more than that, and he's able just to pick his lines and put his foot down and whiz past us with no issue. Now, I don't know what specification this Mini is, but it seems to have a decent enough engine. It seems to be pretty quick off the corners. But I was sitting there thinking, well, you know, he's doing all right, but he's not particularly pulling away, which is surprising given the speed that he caught us down the start-finish straight. So I'm a little bit surprised. As we come onto the famous Bentley straight, he puts his foot down and just sails off into the middle distance, and I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to see him again for the rest of the race. But one of the advantages of the Puma is not particularly quick in a straight line, but it's very good on the brakes. It's very lightweight, and it's able to brake quite late, and we're able to make up quite a lot of time on the Mini in this following section around corner and the last corner, purely because I think the guy in the car ahead's a little bit more tentative than he perhaps needs to be. Nothing particularly wrong with his line, he's just not particularly quick through it. And coming down to the last corner, and I'm thinking, well, if I can catch him this time, maybe I can get him on the next lap. But he, as the laps went on, he was able to just enough over the space of a lap just to be able to eke a little bit more on me lap after lap. And again, you can see on the left hand side another Mini rocketing past the both of us. I mean, that's one thing you have to be very aware of when you're racing in multi-class racing, is it's fair to say that the Pumas are probably the slowest on the track, and the BMWs are probably the quickest, and they've probably got 400, 500, 600 horsepower cars that are able to, you know, just sail past us. But you have to be aware of where they are and where they're catching you, which means you looking in your rearview mirrors a lot more than you normally would do, because the last thing you want to do is check at the beginning of the Bentley straight, and then when you go to brake and turn left under the bridge, discover you've got a BMW on your inside that you want to air off. So we've jumped a bit ahead now to quite late on in the race, and I just thought it was interesting to highlight the difficulties that you can end up with when you're being lapped by much faster traffic. Obviously, we're still behind the Mini, still pretty much much for muchness. He gets away on the straight, so I catch him in the corners. But over the next few laps, you'll see that every time I have to let a car past, sometimes not in the most ideal situations, how much time you can lose. much time we've lost now to the Mini. The Mini's pretty much gone. I've had to compromise my line a little bit too much, and the Mini's got away. Obviously we're still catching on the slower bits, but yeah, I never get into the bomb hill now, which is one of my favourite corners at Snetterton. And again, I had to give room on the apex there to let the quicker car through and cool. Never really felt that I've got the corner right. Too much playing with the throttle rather than keeping it on a nice constant application. And again, we're doing the weird thing with the hands. Janetta pops through there. Again, can't really take the line that I prefer, so we've lost a load of time. We're slow out the corner. We've got this Fiesta behind us that's a bit frustrating really. I was quite surprised to see it come past me quite so quickly because we quite easily out-qualified it. So I'm it's irritating, and I'm assuming whether or not they had a problem in qualifying, but they seem to be going right in the race. This car, the Fiesta ST, has probably only got about 30 horsepower more than the Puma. We keep them in the middle in the twisty bits. Once again, he's just able to eke away. There wasn't a TCR Golf going past on the left, so you can never relax. You've always got to think about where you're trying to get to, what you're trying to do, and yet still be aware of the traffic around you. So I mean, we make a lot of time up here into this, into Agostini on the brakes here. I mean, a couple of car lengths, we've probably closed 6, 7, 8 car lengths there. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but it felt good to me. And again, you see he's just creeping away out the corners. Which is slightly frustrating because you think, I could just get him, but not really in this case. By this time, I'm starting to stuff a little bit of understeer. You see him through some of the corners. I've got quite much more lock on than I had previously in the stint, but that's to be expected. As the race goes on, the tyres are going to get hotter and slicker, and not give you quite the same initial turn, and they're going to slide across the surface a bit more. So I think this is the last lap now. We're coming through Coram, or Bombard, then Coram. Yeah, so we're second in the Puma Cup, which is a pleasing result. It's pleasing to put it onto pole position. It'd been nice to have a few more cars to play with. I'm particularly surprised that the Puma Cup isn't more popular. It seems to be a really good value way of going racing. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and the checkered flag. I just wanted to thank John for the opportunity, very much for the opportunity. I don't get out as much as I would like. I've had well documented issues with my Astra, so it's always nice to get back on the circuit. In fact, I was supposed to share this car with John on the Silverware Grand Prix circuit in October of last year at the Birkin 6-hour race, which is always a great event to be part of. But unfortunately, John managed to destroy the head gasket in practice. So we've got a lovely video of him coming into the pit lane, looking like a boiling kettle. But unfortunately, we didn't get out didn't get very far in the race. Actually, I think it was probably the race, the first laps of the race that the car expired rather than in practice. I do remember qualifying for that. But so we come to the end of the race. I'm now really frustrated because I want to get back, get my helmet and get my overalls off. There's absolutely no airflow in the Puma. There's no windows, nothing to open. Got a hot engine at the front, hot exhaust running through the car. and I'm not as fit as I perhaps ought to be. And whilst it doesn't really bother you when you're racing and the adrenaline's flowing, as soon as you stop, it the heat and the sweat starts to hit. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. I haven't bored you too much. Big shout out to Mark Chappell for keeping all the wheels on the car while wielding the spanners and the pit board. John and I wouldn't be able to do this without his help. And see you again soon. Thank you.